How's it going, Jeremy?
Can you guys hear me?
Holy shit.
Ahoy from the abyss. It's me, Karina, finally back from the glorious pits of hell to bring you an interesting spin to a dead horse of a man. Yep, it's Geeks and Gamers again. My first video on Jeremy became my most watched video on my channel with just under 5,000 views. Not too shabby. I can almost make a career off of dunking on Jeremy, but I vowed not to talk about it unless I can make the subject interesting. And boy howdy do I have a golden piece of content for you today. Believe it or not, Jeremy has been debated before. It's quite rare, but he has been challenged on the debate stage before. So, big ups to Southpaw, who I met through EFAB, for providing this epic rare footage of a wild Jeremy in his natural habitat. This is 5 hours in on Southpaw's podcast where he was talking about Jeremy's Cyberpunk 2077 video. One thing leads to another, and Jeremy ends up on the show. This is fascinating, because now we could actually get a chance to hear the bald Prince of Bel-Air defend his own arguments. Before we start, I'll give you all of the context of this discussion. Jeremy made a video on Cyberpunk 2077 having no set gender option, and the response is exactly what you would expect from Geeks and Gamers.
I am not going to sugarcoat this. I am not going to try to sit here and say, I understand where they're coming from, and I get it, yada, yada, yada. I am not trying to come at it from that standpoint, because ultimately what is happening is they are creating an issue that does not exist. They want to make the issue exist so that they can then virtue signal and grandstand on top of their made-believe issue that they just created. Now, here's what's going on. First of all, Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the most highly anticipated games I can remember in recent memory. This game is going to sell like crazy. All right. And now they are seeing the opportunity. They have the data. They have the information. They know that this game is going to sell like crazy. So now they can start implementing the identity politics and the social justice warrior garbage into it because they have already established excitement for it. So now when the game actually does well, the SJW crowd and the far left media out there is going to sit here and go, you see, everybody wants more inclusion. Everybody wants more representation. This is what we need more of. This is the game that they like to play, and they are good at it, but I'm better at calling it out. Okay, when people use the terminology inclusion, representation, and all of that garbage and nonsense, I immediately don't believe a word that comes out of their mouth after that. It's the same as when I hear a male feminist talk. When I hear that there's a grown-ass man that identifies as a male feminist, I immediately do not trust this person at all, because I know that they don't believe in what they say. They don't believe it. So when I hear inclusion, equality, representation, those are simply words that mean you are full of crap.
Yeah, that makes you look pretty bad, Jeremy. But either way, this is a great occasion to truly take a deep dive into the mind of Geeks and Gamers. Let's watch him actually defend himself when he is formally challenged by a worthy opponent. How much merit do his points really have?
I have some criticisms about like the whole Bound Against Comics thing. I don't know if you're fully up to speed on my issues with them. We can go over that later on if you like.
I watched the stream.
Okay.
All I know is I addressed it on a video of mine where I basically said like, it's my interpretation of what they said, and you have a different interpretation. At the end of the day, nobody's right, nobody's wrong. We just have our side of how we view it. And I view Hollywood as littered with identity politics and a lot of nonsense. So when I hear Robert Pattinson and Jennifer Lopez, making a joke about a female Batman, when we've seen female Ghostbusters, when we've seen the Terminator franchise, when we've seen Star Wars, I think that there's a little truth into that. And I think Hollywood has shown us some tangible evidence that there is some little truth into that. I don't think we could have The Rock and Robert Pattinson making a wink joke about how The Rock would make a great Wonder Woman, because I believe Hollywood would eat that joke alive. So I believe that there's a lot of truth.
I think they love that.
And that's fine. You can disagree. And I'm saying you can disagree, but it's my perception on it. It's my perspective. It doesn't mean you can't disagree, but that's just my perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, I wasn't disagreeing that it was your perspective, man.
Oh boy. So this is a motif you'll notice throughout the entire hour and a half long debate. Jeremy, when challenged on his points, will often fall back on, "It's just my perspective," or "It's my interpretation." This is obviously a very weak defense when asked to clarify positions like this.
Okay, when people use the terminology inclusion, representation, and all of that garbage and nonsense, I immediately don't believe a word that comes out of their mouth after that. It's the same as when I hear a male feminist talk. When I hear that there's a grown-ass man that identifies as a male feminist, I immediately do not trust this person at all, because I know that they don't believe in what they say. They don't believe it. So when I hear inclusion, equality, representation, those are simply words that mean you are full of crap.
I mean, Jeremy, no shit this is your opinion. We know this is your opinion. Southpaw is asking you to clarify your positions, justify why you think what you do. Even when Jeremy does justify what he says, it's saturated in vague statements. The far left, quote unquote, and quote unquote Hollywood culture being the two most notable. I know if I asked 30 different people to define both of those, I'd get 30 different answers. I hope Jeremy doesn't seriously think that CNN is far left. I think my brain would explode from that level of stupid. But the biggest problem with this statement is that it reeks of bias. This is nothing new for Jeremy, considering this is the same guy who thinks Bounding Into Comics is a reliable source, despite the fact that they've been caught lying on multiple occasions. It's very entertaining to watch Southpaw patiently explain to Jeremy why he's an idiot, but we sadly can't watch the entire debate. I'll leave the link to it in the description because I'm going to start skipping around to the highlights.
So I don't agree with this. I don't agree with the this notion that a comment which is made in jest, like you have a. So you saw the clip that we played, right, of the actual interview.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have one person, a woman, saying to a man, "I think that you'll be a great Batman." And then the guy says back, "You too." He's kind of laughing as he's saying that. And then he repeats that when she seems kind of like either she didn't hear him right or she just wants confirmation. They're joking. They're laughing as they're saying this. Pretty much everyone that was in my chat and in the call agreed that that was a joke. I don't like this idea that you can interpret. You can just say, "Oh, well, it's my interpretation that what you said is not actually a joke, and you're not wrong. I'm not wrong. It's all equal." I don't accept that. That's going to be a.
But what I'm saying though is that joke in the environment that it's being made in, with what we've seen from the entertainment industry over the last 5 years. Yeah, there's a lot of context to my position and a lot of people's position. So the joke in isolation as you're presenting it, sure, I get that argument. But when you add the tangible evidence of Hollywood and their agenda-driven storytelling that we've seen from popular franchises, then I think that adds a lot more context that you're not putting into the argument. And I don't think that's fair when you're criticizing the people that are coming to that conclusion to not add the Ghostbusters 2016, all of the nonsense that we've seen from Hollywood. Do you think that Robert Pattinson is not going to sit there and say, yeah, sure, if he asks seriously if he thinks a woman can play Batman in the Hollywood environment, of course he's going to say that he thinks a woman can play Batman, because you can't have that the legitimate common sense opinion in Hollywood. So again, that's just the context to it.
No, that's not the context.
You're presenting it as a joke.
It is a joke.
Yes, it is. And when you come to the conclusions that I came to, I gave you the context behind my conclusion.
I don't think that your context is specific to the actual exchange, though.
That's fine, but that doesn't change the fact that I have a valid reason to come to my conclusion. Whether you agree with it or not is completely up to you, but I still have a valid context to support the reason I came to the conclusion I came to.
So when they're talking about the joke of Jennifer Lopez being a good Batman, Jeremy tries to justify his outrage toward it by saying that the big bad far left media will spin this into a serious suggestion because conservatives are not allowed in Hollywood, supposedly, and they will use it to grandstand about an agenda that's bad and stuff, I guess. So what I think he's trying to say is people on the quote-unquote far left will take this obvious joke seriously and will use it to push an agenda of forced diversity, I guess. And he's extrapolated this from a single throwaway joke mentioned on a single news source. God, I swear I couldn't make this shit up if I tried. Oh, but Jeremy acknowledges that it's a joke, but still insists it's bad because it's not a joke. But it is. But it isn't. But it is. But no, wait, no, it isn't. But it is. Something, SJW diversity, postmodernist, blueberry waffles, because why not?
So, could you like draw a reference for someone making an outlandish, unironic idea for a casting decision like that?
I mean, again, I've given see, now you're trying to add more to it. I've given you Ghostbusters 2016, Terminator, Star Wars, 3 beloved franchises that have been ruined by identity politics by pushing a female agenda into it. And then when you hear Robert Pattinson and Jennifer Lopez, someone who has gone full orange man bad on plenty of occasions, yet she never criticized Obama. Because why? Because you can't criticize Obama in Hollywood, but you can damn sure criticize Trump because that's the Hollywood think tank that we're in. So the point is that joke is acceptable because that's the Hollywood agenda. And again, you don't have to agree with my position. You don't have to say that I'm right, but at least understand that I am coming from a place of tangible evidence to support my position.
The thing about that is, though, so in the case of Ghostbusters, for one thing, that is the reboot was a trash film. The original was great. They didn't change the characters that were in the original into women. They made up different female characters, and they all sucked. I'll grant you that. I'm not going to defend Ghostbusters 2016 or anything related to that. However, I don't think that Ghostbusters 2016 can really be used to draw an analogy here, considering that
again, you don't think so, and that's fine, but I do.
Please. So when it comes to
use for context,
when it comes to Batman, the name man is there, and then basically suggesting that a woman play a character named Batman when there are characters like Batgirl and Batwoman that exist. That's an inherently absurd thing. That it's like the joke basically speaks for itself. The punchline is right there. Do you understand?
I do understand, and I understand that you're trying to tell me that my context is not good for your standards, and that's perfectly fine, but it's good enough for my standards on the conclusion I came to. And at the end of the day, that's all I need is my standards and my conclusion based on my context, not on yours. Okay. So you can have whatever opinion you want, but it's not going to change the fact that I have mine.
I just think that your context is
kind of... that's how opinions work, though.
One of the funniest parts of the debate is when Southpaw asks him to provide any examples of outrageous casting choices made strictly for diversity, and Jeremy had nothing to respond with other than Ghostbusters 2016 and 007, even though both of those are bad examples because they were original characters, not gender swaps of previously established characters.
Okay, now, do we want to go ahead and just pull up this interview? Because we can do that. We can pull up.
Yeah, I don't know how that changes any of the details that we're talking about, because my stance is not going to change, and my context is there to justify my conclusion on it. I mean, we all know what was said. We've seen it 100 times.
Okay.
It's not going to change the fact that I know that I acknowledge that it was a joke, but what I'm saying is that within the environment it's in, I feel that there's tangible evidence to support that there's a little more to that joke than there is.
Your intellect is as weak as your dollar. Failure is your destiny. You disrespect yourself and your nation. You are made of stupid.
could always do something different, but we're talking about what I did. So holding me accountable for something I didn't do is unfair to me. Let's talk about what I did do and what the inherent problem is with what I did do.
Well,
I don't like answering for what I didn't do.
Okay.
Jeremy, buddy. Never once has anyone in this podcast criticized you for something you didn't do. They've been pointing out what you did do was ineffective compared to what you could have done. You poorly explained and poorly substantiated your points on an issue that doesn't help your cause whatsoever. It's amazing how that simple point keeps sailing over his head. It's almost like he's not actually listening to what's being said.
I'm pretty sure my whole issue here is how this news is being used by the people I hate, and not so much a problem with the game. I mean, you guys have all watched it. Do I have any real problems with the game?
No, we're
or
not.
How the news is being used?
Well, we're not saying.
Not that I can see.
I've got to say, it came across that way when I was watching it first. That it came across that you had a problem with the feature was in the game because you knew how. It seemed like you were blaming the feature of the game for how people were going to react to it.
Right.
Was the impression I got.
And that's why we wanted to have you on to clarify, because it was kind of difficult to believe that this is actually what you think. That you would think that there is an issue with diversity being a thing. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's ever watched my content and viewed my channel, though, you should know I don't have a problem with diversity. It just by itself existing. I've said this 1,000 times. I have a problem with forced diversity and diversity specifically for the benefit of going and showing everyone how great of a person you are. To even ask that question is a fundamental misunderstanding of me and anything I've ever stood for.
Oh well, like I've
said this 1,000 times.
I have enough familiarity with your channel, and you know, like I know that you like movies like, let's say, Into the Spider-Verse, right? You don't have an issue with diversity when it's done well.
Jeremy is also very adamant that he's not anti-diversity, but you sure about that? The only way he could really defend himself against that criticism is, well, I have 2,000 videos. If you think I'm anti-diversity, then you just don't understand me. That's your fault, not mine. Like, not only is this a complete cop-out of an answer, it also doesn't address the central issue of your poorly communicated message, which is, oh, I don't know, the entire fucking point of this debate. Jeremy, look, if you're pro-diversity and that's really your opinion, that's fine. But don't you think maybe you should reflect on how your word choice affects how people understand you? Don't you think you should reflect on how you should word your sentences so you don't get misunderstood in the first place? Is that really too much to ask? I mean, you seriously don't understand how that could be misconstrued into making people think you hate any and all diversity? Jeremy, sweet buttercream pie, you're not that dumb. Not even I think you're that dumb. Come on, man.
Watching this video, knowing what you've said multiple times in the past, it's strange. It's like, I think that it was communicated poorly because to everyone in the call, it came off a way that you clearly didn't intend. And the goal of this stream was to get clarification on this.
You have it. I've given it to you. My whole problem is how the news is going to be portrayed. And I don't think anybody that I know or that you know or any of us really know has a problem with a different race or a different gender or a different sexual orientation. If I know anybody, then I don't talk. If I know someone, if I find out someone is flat out racist or sexist or just against someone because they have a different sexual orientation, then I fail to communicate with that person moving forward. I think that's a normal behavior from anybody that we all associate with. And I think to normalize the thought that I would have any other thought other than, you know, what I have with my diverse team and the people I interact with, to question that is a, you know, a failure to have any understanding of me whatsoever. I mean, I think it's pretty clear by my track record and who I surround myself with that I don't have a problem with diversity.
Right, but it's good to have this clarification on the record because, again, people can take this soundbite or any soundbite from this video and where you're not communicating yourself very clearly, which like I think is fair to say about this video, and then use that to say, well, this is proof that, you know, Geeks and Gamers and everyone that associates with them, Mauler, the Fandom Menace, whatever, they hate diversity in general, because that's how it comes across. And I get that that's not what you meant.
But here's the
I get that that's not what you meant.
Yeah, but but I don't care about these things. You know, we have people that criticize Mauler, and they don't know anything about him. People are going to criticize you for anything. I don't live my life worrying about what people think about me. If people fail to do the proper research on me and come to a blanket conclusion, that's on them. I don't care. I don't give a shit. I have so many lies spread about me on a daily basis, as do all of you. I will never spend my time worrying about it. You can do the research on me to if your opinion of me is so important to you, you'll do the proper research, and if you don't, then that's a failure on your part. I don't have to answer to myself. There's 2,000 videos on my channel. There's plenty of things to criticize about me. There's plenty of mistakes I've made. There's things that I probably have said that I would probably look back on and say, yeah, I don't feel that way anymore. But at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility to explain things to anybody.
And that statement right there says a lot about you, Jeremy. See, Jeremy is only interested in pleasing people who already agree with him, and to hell with everyone else. This is an extremely detrimental attitude to have while trying to maintain a YouTube channel. You should want anyone to be able to pick up your content and like it on its own merits, not just because it spreads an agenda you agree with. Need I even point out the irony of a man like this complaining about quote-unquote Hollywood culture and far-left agendas while literally admitting to pushing his own agenda from the opposite end? And considering how often he's used bounding into comics as a source, he doesn't care if what he says is true or not. Exactly like the people he hates. On the other hand, I can't entirely shit on him for doing that. After all, I appeal to my audience in the same way he does. The big difference being that I'm not willing to lie to my audience to push an anti-Fandom Menace agenda. I provide as bulletproof reasoning as I can while making people who like them consider other options. Believe me, I'm not always good at it, but I can admit to being wrong. Jeremy seems to have a lot of trouble with that, as evidenced by this entire debate. I want to thank Southpaw once again for letting me use this. The full debate will be in the description. Feel free to check that out. I'm Karina McDaniels, and I'll see you next time.